Today I'm going to be showing you how to use eggs in the making of various dishes. And here I have made an egg custard sauce, which can be used instead of a custard powder sauce. It is used in a light diet because of the high protein content. Here we have a baked custard. This is the same ingredients, but a different cooking method, and these are cooked in a bain-marie to prevent the egg from becoming overcooked and causing syneresis. On the top we have grated nutmeg. Here I have a creme caramel, which is a baked custard with a caramel layer to it, which also a variation on the baked custard theme. And then we come to our meringues. These are made using only the egg white, and we have meringues that are completely baked and meringues showing a small pavlova case, ideal for an individual dessert, which are still to be baked fully. The egg yolks that remain from making your meringues can be used for the making of the 3 custards if you use 2 egg yolks instead of 1 whole egg. I'm going to demonstrate how to make an egg custard sauce. These are not easy to make because they're inclined to curdle if overheated, but they are of importance in a diet, in a light diet where you need a high protein content. I'm going to take 1 egg, which I'm going to crack with the back of a knife. And open it onto a saucer. You do this with every egg that you are going to use for baking or the making of food. This is to check that the egg is fresh and that there are no blood spots or eggshell included in it. I'm then going to pour the egg into my bowl, add a tablespoon of sugar, teaspoon of vanilla, and 250 milliliters of milk. This egg and milk mixture I'm going to beat. I have not beaten it a lot. I've beaten it enough to mix it and to produce as little foam on top of the milk as I possibly can. On the blackboard, I have 2 illustrations of a double boiler. The first double boiler shows the level of the water at least 3 or 4 centimeters below the top pot. In other words, the water does not touch the top pot. This we use for the making of sauces and also for steaming, and because the steam rises off the water, the temperature is going to be 110. Steam has a temperature of 110 degrees Celsius. The second illustration I have here, the water level is much higher. It touches the top pot. And because water boils at 100 degrees Celsius, the custard in the top pot will not overheat. And we use this specific example for the making of an egg custard sauce. Here I have a double boiler which has water in the bottom, which is touching the inner pot, the top pot, and I am going to pour my egg custard sauce into the double boiler. And I'm going to stir it with a metal spoon. This is virtually the only time that you stir with a metal spoon in a metal pot. I'm going to return it to the heat and stir it slowly all the time until the egg custard sauce is cooked. The egg custard has now thickened, and to indicate that, you will notice that it is coating the back of the metal spoon. It is coating the back of the metal spoon. And it also is visibly slightly thicker than it was. But the best indication is the coating of the back of the spoon. I'm going to remove the custard and I'm going to pour it into a sauce boat. If you overheat the egg custard, it will curdle. You can see that here it is separating out into flakes, easily seen on the spoon. Now, rather than waste this custard, which is perfectly edible but doesn't look as good as it should, you pour it into a bowl that is standing in a bowl of cold water, and you beat it with the electric beater until it has a homogeneous or smooth texture again. This smooths the custard, and as you can see on the spoon, it is once again smooth. I'm now going to demonstrate a baked custard. A baked custard has the same ingredients as a custard sauce, but the cooking method actually changes. I'm going to take 1 egg, break it with the back of my knife onto my saucer. Check to see that the egg is all right, no blood spots, no shell, and then place it in my mixing bowl. To that I'm going to add a tablespoon of sugar, some vanilla, and a pinch of salt, just to bring out the flavor. And finally, I'm going to add 250 milliliters of milk. I'm going to beat the mixture as I did before. Do not overbeat the mixture and try not to make too much of a froth. Here I have a greased Pyrex dish. Pour the mixture into it. And I sprinkle the top of the baked custard with ground nutmeg. Nutmeg is the preferred spice when you are making milk puddings. Put a good layer of ground nutmeg on your pudding. There are variations of the baked custard, like a rice pudding, where we would put leftover rice or pre-cooked rice in with the egg custard, or a bread pudding where we used buttered bread and perhaps raisins, and we cover that with this egg mixture. Sago and tapioca puddings are made the same way, as long as the sago or the tapioca have been pre-cooked, which you do in a double boiler in milk until such time as the starch in both of them is cooked. You then pour your egg custard over it, put your ground nutmeg on the top of it, and then stand the custard in a bain-marie. We use a roasting pan as a bain-marie. You can use a cake tin, a round one or a square one, as long as your Pyrex bowl fits into it, and you place the baked custard in the water so that the water reaches halfway up the bowl. I'm going to make a cream caramel, which is going to be put into the same bain-marie, so I'm not going to put this into the oven immediately. In this frying pan, I have 125 milliliters of sugar and 125 milliliters of water. And the first step is to get all of the sugar to dissolve in the water, stirring it all the time on a high heat. This is a slow process which you cannot do quickly because the sugar burns sooner than you imagine. You can see that it's heating up because the steam is rising from the pan, the water is evaporating. The sugar has completely dissolved, and now we're going to have to let the water evaporate away. Caramel is basically burning sugar with virtually no water in it at all, but it's easier to start off with water to dissolve your sugar before you reach the final stage. The sugar syrup, the water has evaporated and we are left with sugar syrup, which is going to start to color almost immediately. The coloring or the burning of the sugar happens very, very quickly, and you need to lift it off the stove just at the right moment so that you don't get a burnt flavor. It It has noticeably turned yellow. And the color is intensifying. It's now a golden brown. The smell is becoming more and more caramel as we know it. This is now a good golden brown caramel color. And I'm going to pour this into the bottom of a greased Pyrex bowl. The best way to remove the caramel from the bottom of the pan is to allow it to cool slightly and then fill it with cold water. In this bowl, I have 250 milliliters of milk, an egg, 12.5 milliliters or a tablespoon of sugar, vanilla, and a pinch of salt. I'm going to beat them. And I'm going to pour the beaten egg custard onto the caramel over the back of the scraper to try and prevent it from lifting the sugar syrup. I'm not putting any nutmeg over the custard because we do not want to drown out the flavor of the caramel. I'm now going to place the creme caramel with the baked custard in my bain-marie. I'm going to put the two custards, the baked custard and the creme caramel, in the bain-marie onto the middle shelf of the oven at 180 degrees Celsius. I'm going to make meringues, and I'm using 2 eggs, so I'm going to show you 2 ways of separating the eggs. The first one, I knock it with a knife, slowly open it, and retain the egg yolk in the egg shell. Slowly put it back into the other shell, move it from one shell to the other. Scrape the egg white off and put the egg yolk into another dish. Doing it that way takes experience. If you're not too sure, you can use an egg separator, which is a plastic cup with 2 holes in it, which you place over a glass or a cup. Break your egg and open the egg into the egg separator. The egg, can move it around a little bit. The egg white slips away through the holes into the cup, and the yolk is retained in the egg separator. Place your egg yolk in your bowl and your egg white with the other egg white. These egg yolks should not be thrown away. They can be used, 2 egg yolks instead of 1 whole egg. They can be used to make an egg custard sauce or a baked custard, or added to scrambled eggs. There are numerous ways that you can use your egg yolks. While I'm beating the egg whites, I'm going to show you the various stages to which an egg white can be beaten for different purposes. As you will notice, the egg white is a yellow-green and it is transparent. Once I start beating it, I will show you the stages without actually talking to you while the beater is going. This is the first stage. The egg white is losing its yellow-green coloring. It's becoming whiter. The air bubbles are still large and uneven. And this is known as the foamy stage and is used for clearing soups. If you want an absolutely clear soup, you put this foamy egg white into it, which coagulates, removes the pieces of food, vegetables, and that from the soup, and gives you a perfectly clear stock once you strain it out. The next stage is the soft peak stage. The bubbles are uniformly smaller. The egg white is very much whiter, and you find that the peaks that are formed will in actual fact fall over. They do not remain upright. Now, when making meringues, once you have reached this stage, the soft peak stage, you are going to add your various ingredients. I'm adding 5 milliliters of corn flour, which acts as a stabilizer, 1 milliliter of cream of tartar, which decreases the pH of the eggs and also stabilizes them. A pinch of salt as flavor. And some vanilla. Not too much vanilla, as it's inclined to make the meringue go brown. I'm going to beat these ingredients in, and then I'm going to start adding my 125 grams of caster sugar slowly till we reach the next stage. As you will see, the meringue is now very white. The air bubbles are so small that you can't see them, and the meringue is now shiny. If you lift the egg beater out of it, the peaks stand upright, and then you know that the meringue has reached the right stage and will hold its shape. This meringue has reached the third stage, which is the stiff peak stage. If you beat it any longer, the egg white proteins will coagulate, and you will have in your egg white flakes, solid white flakes of egg white protein. This is the stage that you do not want to beat egg white to, as it then is overbeaten and does not react as it should. I have now overbeaten the egg white. It's no longer shiny, it's dull, and it looks lumpy. And this is brought about by the flakes of overcoagulated egg white protein. The egg white is now unstable, and greater syneresis will take place if it is used to make an egg white dish. I'm going to show you 3 different ways of making or shaping meringues. Here I have my bowl of meringue, and here I have a piping bag with a piping nozzle. Now, if you do not have one of these, you can create your meringues by using 2 spoons. You can make the size as big or as small as you like. This is one of the easier ways of making your meringues. Otherwise, you fill your piping bag with the meringue mixture. What you do is you fold the piping bag back so that you have easy access to the bottom of the piping bag, and you fill it with meringue. The piping bag is now full to the fold. You then fold the top back, hold it closed, and twist. This prevents the meringue from going back up the wrong way. Pressing gently, you can now make meringues of whatever size you wish. One of the variations that we can make with meringue is a small pavlova case. Here I have drawn 2 circles, small circles, on my greaseproof paper, which I drew before I sprayed with Spray and Cook. When making meringues, always remember to paper your pan and spray and cook the paper. I'm going to make a base in the circle form, the outer circles and then the inner circles, until I have a base. I'm making the second one. Now, I must create a wall on the edges of the pavlova so that once it has been baked and is dry, you can then put ice cream or fruit or fresh cream into the pavlova to serve as a very rich dessert. Making a wall. Meringues are baked at 120 degrees Celsius for 2 hours. Then you switch the oven off and leave the meringues in the warm oven to cool down for another hour. So they take a long time to bake, and it's more a drying out process than it is baking process.